Welcome, everyone. This is the third installment of our Wellness Month here at Wise Wellness Guild. For those of you who are new to Wise, thank you so much for joining. It's not lost on me that Lauris Woolford means as much to you as she does to me, in the sense that she is just an incredible angel coach that has provided so much value to everybody, and that you are here to support her, but also supporting this amazing community of women, that we are all dedicated to the advancement of women through full self-wellness. And through this Wellness Month, this being the third installment, we are just really thrilled to have invited Erin Timmerding to speak on all things financial wellness last week, and then Dr. Gina Macarone, who spoke on skin health and being able to take that time for mindfulness as we think about our regimen, but doing it in a really meaningful, scientific way of not just, doing it and be done with it, but really investing in ourselves and taking the time to really think about how we are really taking care of the largest organ in our body. So as I welcome Lauris, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you could please go on mute unless you are jumping in to ask a question. And what I have is today we've got a series of slides that we're going to be able to share. But if you've got any questions, Lauris, what's your preference? Is it people go off mute and hop in, or would you prefer that they ask questions through the little typey tool?
Oh no, go off mute and just hop.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought you were going to say, but I wanted to make sure that you were good there. Well, wonderful. So as many of you know, Lauris Woolford is just an incredible human, first and foremost. She is the owner of Woolford and Associates, the associates being her two labs, of which I've had the pleasure of meeting one, and is a mother and just an incredible mentor all around to so many women. As we think about her background, just has an incredible legacy of leadership at Fortune 500 companies. And in this next chapter of her life is really thinking about how she can bring that through executive coaching, as well as really growing the leadership of women in this community. And Lauris and I found each other through We Lead. Someone who went through We Lead met Lauris and just highly recommended her. And so through that, Lauris and I just got to know each other, and she is a founding member of Wise Wellness Guild. I am just so honored, Lauris, that you are here today to bestow your wisdom upon this incredible community of women, and am really looking forward for you to be able to share a little bit about your philosophy to leadership and how through the years you've really been able to identify how people can find fulfillment and what matters and all of those things. So thank you so much for joining. Could not be more honored for you to be here, and take it away.
Yeah, well, great. Thanks, Stevie. I mean, when you approached me about being part of this and talk about this subject, it's like, this is so near and dear to my heart. I just can't tell you, this has had such a profound impact on me personally and professionally. And just a little bit about myself. Live in Hyde Park. I'm divorced. I went to Xavier University and got my master's up at Case Western. I worked at Macy's and Federated Department Stores for 12 years. Then Mercantile Stores, which was a parent company, McAlpin's. I ran their corporate university until Dillard's purchased it. Then went to Fifth Third Bank for 15 years. And retired 6 years ago, which, I don't know where the time went, 6 years ago as the EVP of Organization Development and Planning. So in that role, we were in charge of really the top 400 leaders in the bank, all their leadership development, their talent management, their executive coaching. And this is really when I had an opportunity to put emotional intelligence and everything I've learned about how people are successful in work and in life. Personally, I'm dating a wonderful gentleman. He's an IT consultant, so he thinks it's hysterical. I teach emotional intelligence in his IT world. But I've got two daughters, Katie and Scott, live in Northern Kentucky with my two grandsons. And Shelby, who's in the lower level, sheltering in place with me right now, lives and works in Chicago, Illinois. So I'm very blessed to have my family nearby me and everything. It was really during the talent reviews where we would sit and talk about the top 6,000 leaders, but intimately the top 400 leaders, that everything around emotional wellness and emotional intelligence came to place. You know, this is when I really discovered the power of this. So Stevie, I'll let you move on to Maya.
All right.
This is my favorite quote. I must say this 1,000 times, but I'm telling you, it's such a powerful quote because I have found this to be so true, that people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And the thing is, we move people through our emotions. We move people through our emotions. So I have a quick request for you. This is one thing I would love you to be able to put on the chat room real quick. Think of someone who has had a significant positive impact on your life. Okay, could be a parent, could be a coach, could be a friend, a relative, anyone, a boss, but who's had a really significant impact on your life? And what did they say or do that made that significant to you? If you could put some of those things in the chat room, you don't have to name names. You can just say, I had a coach who built up my self-confidence, for example. But think of that person a moment. And Stevie, can you see some of those too?
Yeah. So the first one, do you want me to read them?
Yeah.
All right. An executive who told me to ensure I set myself up for success first.
Okay.
And then one is my first manager empowered and inspired me.
Okay.
A wise woman once said to me, never settle for anything that doesn't align with your mission, values, and passion.
Mm-hmm.
Friends who make me feel surrounded by strength.
Great.
A colleague who told me to trust myself first. My first boss that gave me the autonomy to do my job.
So I'm hearing a lot of things that have nothing to do with IQ and have nothing to do with technical or functional skills, but had to do with emotional skills that made you feel. I love that one. A mentor who believed in me when I didn't. Mm-hmm. You know, anything who really, someone who sees something in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself. And then if I did the opposite, or if I said, think of someone who really had a negative impact, those feelings come up even more. And I don't want you to have those feelings this morning. Those are negative feelings. I mean, I had a boss, I mean, this has got to be 35 years ago, that I'm afraid if I saw her now, I still might use her as a speed bump, because that's how she made me feel, you know? And so you remember what those feelings are. So those are your emotions. That's how we lead people through our emotions. So this is what we're going to kind of do in the next hour. I told Stevie I could go for 8 hours, but she said I only had 1. So we're going to kind of take a look at the emotional intelligence model. We're going to take a moment to reflect on your own self-awareness. We're going to look at triggers that impact your self-control, how to be more empathic, and then also just how to impact others. Here's the thing. We're going to discuss how to enhance your emotional intelligence. It can give you a greater sense of well-being for yourself, for others in your home, at work, and especially during these really trying times with everyone you come in contact with and in your community. So that's what we're going to talk about. So here's the thing. IQ is very important. It's a baseline for competencies. You know, it helps you with your life. It helps you learn, problem solve, make decisions, analyze. You know, I'm not going to be dismissive of IQ. And technical and functional skills are important as well. You know, as Aaron told us, I want my wealth planner to be competent. I'm never going to be competent in that area of my life. So I want someone to have those skills that can really guide and inspire me. But here's the thing, it takes more than IQ and technical and functional skills. It takes people who can inspire, people who can influence, you know, people who can coach, develop, care about you. And these are the people that are more successful at work and at life. You know, when we were doing talent reviews, I swear, no one ever got promoted because of their IQ. They never got demoted because of, you know, how skilled they were functionally, all their performance. But what so many times the discussions turned out to be that this person wasn't aware of their impact on others. This person lacked self-control. This person couldn't build a team. This person didn't know how to do the social organizational impacts. I mean, they weren't aware. That's where the whole thing about emotional wellness and awareness comes into play. They just weren't aware of their impact. And I've seen people who might have been average on the IQ, average on the technical, but they really had a gift of getting their best work done with people. You know, I always say people drive performance, not products or processes. It's people that drive performance. So I always forget that not everybody knows what all emotional intelligence is about. So Daniel Goleman, who is my guru on emotional intelligence, said that it's really the capacity, it's your ability for recognizing your own feelings and then those of others, and for motivating yourself, and for managing your own emotions in yourself and in your relationships. So I think it was in like 1998 that Daniel Goleman came out with the book, Emotional Intelligence. And I read it and I thought, this is like a medical textbook. Excuse me. About 4 years later, he came out with Working with Emotional Intelligence. And then after that, Primal Leadership. And I thought to myself, oh my God, my mom was a school teacher and she raised me on two things, using common sense at all times and the golden rule. So if you use common sense and you use the golden rule, you were probably in it. I had no idea that common sense and the golden rule was emotional intelligence. You know?
Mission statement.
I just didn't know that.
Gave me a bunch of money.
Stevie, you're muted. Did you know? Yeah, okay. So we'll turn to the next one. By the way, Stevie is my driver today because one thing you need to know about me is that I am very high touch but low tech. That's my motto. So here's the core of emotional intelligence. It absolutely starts with you, okay? You have to understand yourself. You have to be able to manage yourself. Only when you understand yourself and you manage yourself can you really understand others and then manage your relationships. So yourself and then others is really what it's about. And when you talked about the positive people that impacted you, it was more likely that they really moved you emotionally. That's how they understood you. And they know what you needed, like self-confidence they build up, or your self-worth, or really, you know, I always felt like my entire career I had the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome. I think a lot of women leaders feel like that one of these days they were going to find me out and then that would be it, you know. And my best friend used to say, oh, yes, they are going to find you out, Lauris. But here's the thing. When you really understand yourself, they can't take any of that away from you. That is something that you know about yourself then. So here's the best news about emotional intelligence. Every single one of these competencies that we're going to talk about are learned capabilities. Every single one of them. So they're all learned. It's not like you're born with more empathy. Could you be a more caring person? Yes. But could you learn how to be empathic? Are there skills and behaviors that would teach you to demonstrate higher levels of empathy? Absolutely. So that's really, here's the good news here. This is really what my coaching practice is all about. So even though some companies will hire me to develop their leaders, I'm not in there coaching them, teaching them web design or strategy development or project management. I'm helping them discover their values, what their ideal self is, which is really their future self, compare it to their real self, what they know about themselves currently, and then deciding on 2 or 3 things that really they want to develop. And I guarantee you, when people hire me as a coach, they don't say, Lauris, I want to get better at decision making, or I want to get better at strategic planning. Those are workshops and courses and mentors that can help them. 9 times out of 10, they want to understand how to motivate their teams. They want to understand how to inspire people. They want to become better coaches. They want to lead. They really want to create followership, and they want to understand how to have difficult conversations. So all of those things are emotional intelligence competencies. So this is just a brief chart to kind of show you. The top is all about your awareness, yourself and others, and the bottom is about your actions, what you do and say, and how you manage relationships. And when you start with yourself and then go to your social and your relationship, that's what really then gives you the positive impact on others. Because so many times what happens is that leaders will start and they'll say, okay, Lauris, I am just not having the impact on my team that I want to have. They're just not listening. They're not following. I don't think they're working hard enough. And it's like they want to put it off about their team. And I bring it right back to that self-awareness. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what your goals are. Tell me how you're doing this. Between their awareness and their actions, I can see what the issues are then with social relationship management. Okay, I always bring people back to self-awareness first. And the question is, do you have an accurate perception of yourself? We're going to talk about that in a minute. I did want you to see, though we're not going to go into it today, what the most recent up-to-date list is of EI competencies. So you can see under self-management, you're achievement-oriented, you've got adaptability, the self-control, the positive outlook. And I can really tell you, a lot of those competencies lead to resilience. Think about it in our environment right now. The people who really struggle with change. The people who really struggle with change are not as adaptable. And sometimes they might not have the positive outlook. Okay, so this period of time, if you look at your triggers on self-awareness and self-management, that's going to really help you get through this very unsettling time of environment. Now, when you look at social awareness, it's about empathy and organization awareness. And organization awareness just kind of means this is really how things are getting done in the organization. So like when I wanted to get something accomplished and worked with our president or CEO, I didn't do it before board meetings. I didn't do it when the stock was down. It's just being really aware of what's going on in the organization at all times. And so you use your power to influence using that organization awareness. And then relationship management talks about the conflict, the coach, the influence, the inspirational leadership, and teamwork. And I guess I just want to, have some acknowledgement. Do you see what I see though, as far as coaching? Like, when you're coaching people, very seldom is it really about technical or functional skills or is it about their brightness, their sharpness, their IQ? 9 times out of 10, it's really about these type of emotional competencies. Any questions there? Okay,
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get
I'll
off.
go on.
I guess my question, Lauris, is if emotional intelligence is so important, how do so many leaders who have so little of it get to the top? That, and I don't expect for you to have the exact answer, and I can use my imagination, but it is a little befuddling sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And listen, I totally agree. When I got to Fifth Third, we started with like Leadership Challenge and Covey's work and a lot of that stuff. But in 2008, after our stock hit $1, in 2009, after I'd finished my master's and had really gotten to know Daniel and Richard Biatsis and stuff, I came back to the bank and said, listen, if you want cross-sell, if you want customer experience, if you want employee engagement, you know, all the buzzwords that the organizations want, they want commitment from their employees, not compliance. People who don't have emotional intelligence can create compliance. You do what you're said to do, but they never can create commitment. And so we really started teaching this to all of our top 400 leaders. And to this day, 6 years later, I still coach there and they're still teaching it. But I think what happens, Stevie, is that a lot of times we take the best widget maker and we promote them to manager, although they probably should have stayed really happy as an individual contributor. And then after manager, we say, oh gosh, we need you to lead, and we promote them to leader. We didn't teach them what management was compared to leadership. And when you're talking about leadership, you actually use less of your technical and your functional skills and more emotional intelligence. Because the higher up you go, the less you actually do yourself, and the more you have to inspire, lead, orchestrate, direct people to do what you think should be done. You know, Kouzes and Posner have a saying, leadership, the art of leadership is inspiring others to want to struggle for shared vision. You know, so it's a lot of work, but the people we really found out during those talent reviews, it was EI competencies that were holding people back.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like I have job security for life, because I would always say, when common sense becomes common practice, they won't need me, and I'm in no fear of that happening.
That's amazing.
Okay. So we'll look at the first really competency I really want to talk to you about is self-awareness, recognizing your emotions and their effect on others. And if I had $1 for every time someone had said to me, but Lauris, that's just the way I am. Those people know that I might come in and bawl them out, or, say things and be really tough and all that, but they know how I am. I'll go out and buy them a beer afterwards. It's all okay. And I'm like, no, there's no Popeyes here. I am who I am. It's like, no, it's not okay. Because to me, it's about the impact you have on others. It's not just about your intentions. I am a little bit of a Pollyanna. I believe the world is good, and I basically believe people are good. And I do believe people have good intentions, okay? I have seen friends and people who I know they've said or done things that they've regretted. And I gotta be honest with you, if you do a lot of things where you go, oh, I could have handled that better, or if you go, wow, I wish I hadn't said that, or if you find yourself apologizing a lot, then you probably need to be slowed down a little bit and think more about your own awareness of your emotions and the impact they're having on others, because that's the biggest thing. And during this time frame, I've been very aware of my emotions, because I have anxiety. I take medicine for anxiety. I can tell when a lot of people are struggling and I'm starting to take on some of their issues. You know, I can tell when I've got friends' businesses that are, you know, closed. I've got friends who are struggling financially. And it's like, I recognize that. And then I have to do some mindfulness. I get out my Headspace app and I'll listen to Headspace or Calm or Beautify. Or I take a walk. You know, I can tell when I've been inside too much, inside my head or inside the head of other people. And then I drive through Alt Park. Like every day the cherry blossoms were in Alt Park and Hyde Park, I drove through it. And there are just certain things that you know about yourself. And I'm very aware of when I'm starting to feel, you know, I'm a little off kilter here. You know, I need to get back on kilter. And that's part of this emotional wellness. You know, Stevie, you have such incredible women members who talk about, you know, Maggie, who talks therapy and coaching and, you know, behavior. And you've got all these people who talk about mindfulness and talk about all these different skills of wellness, and Rachel with gratitude, and the list just goes on and on. You know, I'm not going to get into that today because you've got so many other people on your way on your May Wellness Month that does that. But I will say mindfulness, hope, compassion, and fun are all things that beat stress. And when you find yourself really stressed and stuff, those are some of the things that you want to make sure that you do, that you make sure you take care of yourself. Okay.
And I think Lauris too, that, you know, it's about having the self-respect to give yourself the space to get out of that stress, right? It's
Yes.
not about beating yourself up, because I know we've talked a lot with people about sometimes they just feel like they deserve it. And that's, I think, part of the challenge too, is just really, and that kind of, I think, takes you to your next slide.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is about, I have to tell women time after time after time, put on your own oxygen mask first. You know, I know a lot of these young women that are on this, a lot of these women now that are on this presentation today, and their wives, their mothers, their workers, their daughters, their siblings, you know, their community people, they volunteer. You know, there's so much a part of your life, and you have to be self-care. You have to give yourself a break. And like you always say, be human and do the best you can. But one of the things we asked you on the pre-work was, what are some things you feel to be true about yourself? Okay. And how do you know that? And I'd rather you just unmute and say some of those things that you know to be true about yourself. And I think Stevie alluded to in the pre-work, like Oprah. I love Oprah's magazine. It's very positive. And on the back page, she always writes this cool article about what I know for sure. What I know for sure. And when I'm coaching people, I always ask them to do that. Take a legal piece of paper, write at the top what I know for sure. And so I'll say, one of my things is, I know I'm a good coach because I care and I'm compassionate about others. You know, so I want to ask you, what do you know to be true about yourself? This is where you participate.
Yes. Go off mute. I know some of you guys sent this into Instagram too, and had some really amazing ones to share.
I'll start. I can say one thing I know for sure is I'm a good friend. If you're in my friend circle, you're in my friend circle for life. So
that's awesome.
I would have to say, Lauris, I know I'm a good mom. I have a happy, healthy boy, and I know that makes me a good mom.
And I know you, and I know you're a great mom.
I was going to say, for me, it just becomes clearer and clearer every time that I'm involved with people that I'm a collaborator, not a competitor. And
oh, that's great.
Beautiful.
Want you on my team.
Yeah, for me, I'm a forever friend, similar to the first one. Once we're friends and we're together and we've created this relationship, I will always have your back.
Those are great.
I know that I am resilient, that I can handle anything that comes my way. Even if I don't like it, I know I can figure it out and move forward positively.
That's great.
I can say that before you asked me to do this exercise, Lauris, nobody had ever asked me that question. And I never thought about it. And maybe I had thought about it, but then I swiftly swept it under the rug because I thought it was maybe being selfish, or I was being braggy or something. And I think that part of this work that I've done with you is acknowledging those things, because it allows for us to wrap our arms around things that are real, right? And it's the understanding that these are the guideposts of truth that we have, and we can hold on to when things are a little shaky. And I think it's very remarkable that we're able to say things very similarly to Aaron. I know that I am incredibly resilient, and that I am able to, it's my design brain. I think I'm able to shift quickly, but as you've seen, sometimes that takes a little work, and it takes the quiet to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
I was going to say, Lauris, I think what's interesting, and going back to what Stevie was saying, is that the way that you frame that question, it's what do you know about yourself, as opposed to tell me what you do really well. I feel like we probably have all had that question where you're thinking, okay, how do I impress with this answer to let them know that I'm really good at doing this job or whatever it is, as opposed to who you are and what you believe makes you good. I think the way even you frame the question is what makes you have to be really thoughtful about your answer.
Well, Esperanza, thank you. And here's what I want to do. I want to build on, these are truths. Okay, these are your truths. So if I would say the same thing. I would say I am resilient. I've been divorced. I've worked for 2 bankrupt companies. I've worked through 4 acquisitions. I've had some heartache and struggle. I land on my feet. Okay. I also know I'm a lifelong learner. I can learn. All of us have the ability to learn. So I might not master something, but I can learn it. So when you write these things down, that I really want to urge you to do this. Take the time today on a legal piece of paper and fill it up. You got to fill it up. Okay. Whether you're a good mom, whether you're a great bicyclist, a great runner, whatever you are, because then when you try new things, or when you do things that kind of scare you a little bit, you can go back and say, wait a minute, this is what I know about me. I know these things about me. I know I'm resilient. I know I'm caring. I know I'm a good friend. These are things I know. So if I know that I'm these things, what else can I be? What else can you do? What else can you learn? What else can you attempt? And it is not egotistical. It is absolutely something that you want to know for sure about yourself, that then allows you to keep growing, keep learning, and keep building. Okay, terribly important. I really, really hope you guys will take this opportunity to do that. Okay, so 1 second, we're just going to talk about self-control of all these self-management competencies. Positive outlook is incredibly important. I'm not only the glass half full, I'm the glass runneth over, because I just think, why would people choose to go through life otherwise? I always want to look on the upside. That doesn't mean I'm not pragmatic. That doesn't mean I'm not realistic, but I choose to go through life with a positive outlook. Adaptable. I feel sorry for people who aren't adaptable, because the world is changing so quickly, and we're in one of the greatest changes right now. And achievement oriented, that guide that you have inside you to really meet whatever your internal standard of excellence is. however, if something's good enough, if it's got to be excellent, if it can be good, but it's whatever your achievement orientation is. The most important one on here, though, is self-control. Okay, self-control is important in your work and in your life. If you work with someone who's up and down, okay, it's like this. What's the wind? Are they in a good mood? Are they in a bad mood? You know, everybody kind of like looks around, you know, oh, how's dad doing today? You know, what kind of mood is mom in today? What's my boss like? Let me tell you, that produces a lot of anxiety and a lot of unrest because you're never going to know what you're going to get. Okay, that's one of the reasons why our environment is so anxiety right now. There's more that we don't know than there is that we know right now. And for people who need to know, I'm a high control person, but I've also got this other side of me who says, I don't worry about things I have no control over. Okay, I'm mindful of them, but I don't worry about them. Okay, but our environment is so anxiety filled because there's so much we don't know right now. This is where people who are resilient come through this really well. People who've experienced life's ups and downs and understand that we will get through this, you know, have a better time with this. But the emotional self-control, Stevie, if you turn the slide a second, I just want to take you through something that's really important. And this is the emotional process of what happens. So your thalamus, part of your brain, it processes all the sensory messages. So it's kind of like those old, what were they called, those CB radios that kind of scan the environment, you know. It kind of goes around and it senses what's your environment like and what's going on. You're so aware of it. Now, most of the times, the green arrow takes you right over the neocortex in your brain, where most of your complex thought happens. You know, so I'll see, okay, Shelby's cooking dinner and I'll need to go in and help her with something. And then that drives my behavior, okay? But if all of a sudden the amygdala goes off and I'm like, oh my God, you know, what the hell is going on? And I get triggered on something. I get something that is your fight and flight syndrome. And when we had lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and we are in the caves and stuff, that came in really handy. And it still will come in handy in the emergency of a fire or something. You've seen people do unbelievable things because it's triggered an emotional fight or flight syndrome, okay? But normally, you guys, we want the amygdala to be kind of resting. I had one professor thinks he said he thinks the amygdala gets bored sometimes, so it raises its ugly head. Okay, well, let me tell you something. I think that's what we're seeing on the news sometimes. I think sometimes people are like, I've had enough. I just can't take any more. And that emotional response is coming out, where if they really thought about their own safety, their health, their family's safety, and really thought about it, it would drive different behavior. The most important thing about this is knowing what your triggers are, okay? So for example, if I'm very passionate about emotional intelligence. If I was going into a meeting where I knew I had cynics, and I mean really big cynics, or really big skeptics, you know, like the hair on my back would, not on my back, good Lord, but the hair on my neck would probably raise up and I'd be like, oh no, you know I'm going into not friendly territory and stuff, okay? But I would know that. I was aware of the environment that I was going into. So if I was going to have a tough conversation, if I was going to have a difficult meeting, if I was going to breach a subject with a child that was not going to go well and stuff, I would be very aware and try to take the emotion and the conflict out of it. I would also always take into meetings a bottle of water or something, because I'd say, you know, let's say they were really hammering at me on something. And I'm like, okay, don't react. You only need a couple seconds. You could adjust your chair, you could sit up, you could excuse yourself to go to the restroom. But, you know, I would tell people, don't swing at pitches in the dirt. You know, when your teenagers are coming at you and you just think you're going to lose your mind, sometimes it's like, we need to pause and we need to think about that. Or we need to have this conversation at a later time. Or, this isn't going the way that it needs to go right now. This isn't helpful. We need to do this at another time. So in order to really have self-control and self-management, know your triggers, know what things, is it politics? Is it religion? Are there subject matters you don't want to talk to with friends or family members? Is it people at work that just get on your last nerve and you have to work with them? Whatever it is, plan ahead of time what your emotional response can be so that you've got in charge of your emotions and your emotions aren't in charge of you. Okay? Now, I think we're going to run out of time, but on this next slide, this was one of your things. I would like to hear from just 2 or 3 people. If you can remember a time, and hey, we all can remember it. I've got plenty of them. But if you can remember a time where you had an amygdala hijacking, you just weren't at your best. Can anyone volunteer to share something when you don't have to have names in it, but when you weren't at your best?
I can share. That was probably yesterday, watching the news with a neighbor, and we don't share political views, so I had to leave the house. We don't quite agree. We can respect each other for who the other person is, but I'm not okay with what's happening these days. I haven't been okay since 2016, and he is. So it's one of those things where you're right. People don't want to discuss politics or religion because it can get too heated. And I certainly got too heated and had to remove myself. But yeah, I would say I was just in trigger mode because sometimes I'm just blown away at the way people can justify things.
Yeah. But that's a trigger. You know what I mean? You know that your passion and your feelings and your beliefs. So either you say to yourself, I have to really manage that and know people think very differently than me, or I'm not going to engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Is there anybody else who could share?
I think for me, I get really triggered when I don't feel like I have a choice. Like when something's being forced upon me or something like that, I get really reptilian.
Well, everybody has the need for autonomous. And you're talking to someone like me who, I've been single for like 30 years. And so my boyfriend would say I definitely have control issues when it comes to the remote or the way we get to a certain location, But it's good that you know that, Alexis. It's good. One more?
I wrote on the chat, it was kind of a half joke, but I said with my mother-in-law, but it's mostly with children, when you have parenting skills, and it's like, well, when your husband was 30 plus years ago when I raised him, it's like, that was a very long time ago, and I raised him, or, like certain little things just trigger me, and I'm just like, take a drink. I do the same thing. Take a drink. Just, those little things just kind of, I just feel my blood pressure go up. Absolutely. Or just all the gifts that have been coming in our house. We have so many gifts just keep coming because they can't see the kids. So we just have all these toys are just flooding our house now. It's just,
can you put them up in a closet?
Well, then they FaceTime and they're just like, did you get the gift that we sent? And it's just like, I don't know how to, and I get it that they want to see the kids and they want to see them play with it. It's just a really hard time. So we're working through it, but.
My suggestion to that I've heard a lot of mothers say is let the kids play for a couple days and then start taking 2 or 3 things away up in the closet. They forget about it and then you bring it out as new later. But that's a great self-awareness. That's a great thing. Well, this is just an exercise for you to think about. Are there topics, people, situations, environments that where you could have an amygdala hijacking, so that you plan before you get to that dinner party or that work associate or that mother-in-law on how you're going to react, so that you can be purposeful in it. Okay. And then one of my most favorite, the other third most important of the emotional intelligence competencies, is empathy. Understanding others and taking an active concern in their an active interest in their concern. So it's really about displaying compassion, which is care and action. You know, it's really about understanding where other people are coming from. And I got to be honest, you guys, when I first got to the bank, I remember someone saying to me, but Lauris, if I care too much about them and I get too close to my people, how do I ever discipline them or give them performance feedback? And of course, after my eyes rolled back in my head and, you know, steam came out a little bit, I had to say, okay, now listen, no one has ever said to me in their entire life, my boss is too compassionate for me. And because of that, you know, I'm not displaying commitment to them. I mean, empathy will drive commitment. You know, when you understand, when your people and your friends go on vacation and you don't even ask them about their vacation, that's not being empathic. You know, you need to care about people. Dr. Helen Reese, and Stevie, I'll give you this so you can put this on the recap. She did a TED talk on empathy. It's very short, but she has an acronym. E stands for eyes, Y stands for your response. It's just M stands for muscle tone. It's just a great TED talk. So if you want to become more empathetic, there are things you can do. She also wrote the book called The Empathy Effect. People say to me, can you really teach empathy? Yes, you can absolutely. I can't tell you if your personal attribute in your personality is that you're a very caring person. Okay, let's say you're all business. You're non-negotiable, you're all business. But you know that you really need to get closer to people and maybe even to be more thoughtful or maybe to be more kind. There are things that you can do to be more kind and more thoughtful. Okay, so empathy development is something that I've spent a lot of time with Dr. Reese on, and you really see, like during this period of time, look at the empathy we're seeing for the healthcare workers. Look at the kindness we're showing to the police, to the fire, to the people who are serving us. I mean, look at all that empathy that's coming out in the world. You know, those are great displays of empathy right now. You know, random acts of kindness and stuff. So I just want to really urge you that empathy is something that should be worked on at all times. Stevie, if you turn the slide, what it really means, like when you say, what does it mean, Lauris? It means that I understand what your motivation is. I'll listen attentively to you. So it means putting down your cell phone, your iPad, getting off the TV, and when someone's speaking to you, you're listening. You know when someone's really listening or not, and you know when they're not paying attention to you, okay? It's also understanding the subtle feelings of others, what they're not saying versus what they're saying. Dr. Reese talks about, are you hearing the chief complaint or the chief concern? When my mother, who had Parkinson's, went to the doctor, she would talk about, oh, you know, dizziness or, you know, erratic walking. That was the chief complaint. The chief concern was, would she end up in a nursing home? You know, so lots of times say, am I hearing the chief concern or the chief complaint? That's understanding the feelings of others, understanding each other by putting yourself in others' shoes. Part of what I thought the golden rule was, and understanding each other's perspectives when they're different from your own. And I will tell you, that's very challenging right now in this environment for some of the reasons that you guys talked about, politically, religious, gun control, it doesn't matter, you know, but it is at least listening and saying, we have different perspectives on that, but I understand that. I hear where you're coming from, okay? So that's more about empathy. So I know we only have, I think Stevie will skip that for a second. And then at the end, I just wanted you to see what the rest of the relationship competencies are, and conflict and coaching and influence. The fourth most important emotional intelligence competence, I believe, is about influence. How to absolutely influence other people in a win-win. It's like the art of negotiation. It's not that I win and you lose, but it's really more about that. But we'll maybe talk about that at a different time. What I really want to leave you with is that you are in charge of you. Now, I know some of you probably thought, wow, I wish my husband would hear this about emotional intelligence. I wish my mother-in-law, I wish my sister, I really wish my boss had listened to this and stuff. But this is a law of personal responsibility. You're in charge of your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior, your decisions, and your reactions. So it really starts with you. One thing I can tell you is that you cannot change another person. Okay, I've got 66 years of life that can tell you you cannot change another person. The person has to be willing to change themselves. But you are responsible for yourself. Now, there's a wonderful book out there. And if you say to yourself, boy, I'd like to help other people with this. One, Primal Leadership, that was written with Richard and Daniel, go through a lot about the emotional intelligence behaviors. But a brand new book, whether you're a parent, whether you're a leader, a community leader, is called Helping People Change. And helping people change, really, no matter where you are in life, lets you get to what their values are, what their ideals are, where they actually are, and takes you through the intentional change theory, some of the work I've been doing with Stevie and others. And that would really help you too. Okay. So that's really what I have on emotional intelligence today, and self-awareness, self-management, and empathy. But what questions do you have?
I have one, Lauris.
Yeah.
Can you, I'm sure you've come across this in all your years. I work for one of our local hospitals, and I've noticed that I've only been at this hospital 10 years, but I've been through 3 CEOs. And I've noticed that our women CEO that we had when I first started was wonderful. And she was a big employee advocate. And I'm not being a sexist, but I'm just saying I've noticed that when the men came in, we lost a lot of those benefits. Do you tend to notice that in general in large companies? Is there a difference when there's a woman CEO and a men CEO?
Unfortunately, I've never worked for a woman CEO. Okay, I can tell you that. But I don't think I'd want to go on record that women display more emotional intelligence than men. I really wouldn't want to say that, because I've worked with leaders, senior leaders, both women and both men, and both of them have the opportunity to display great levels. You know, a lot of it was how they were led. If you look at the people above them, and it also, like when I first came to the bank, it was all about performance. You know, the screensaver is, what did you sell today? You know, so it was about performance. Well, if you only talk about performance, then you don't get the customer experience. You don't get the employee engagement. You don't have all the committees that are out there right now. So I wouldn't want to say one's better at it than the other. I really think it's how you were led is a lot of how you lead others, you know, what good role models you have, and how much you care about really people in general. You know, the thing is, I can tell you, I coach a lot of women, but I coach a lot of senior men, and both have the ability to be much better around emotional intelligence. What other questions?
I have a question in regards to role models. So yesterday or Monday, we heard from Erin talking about financial role models. And I think it's so important to what you were just speaking to, that we also have leaders who we can look up to that do display high levels of emotional intelligence. And I think that that might be part of the challenge, is that a lot of the leaders who are in senior leadership today, their role models, they grew up before we had all of this information, a lot of this information. And it was, you know, they grew up when this wasn't a part of the reward system, or, you know, how we motivate people. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on how to find a good role model if maybe one isn't apparent or evident.
Yeah. Well, I think to find a good mentor, I had some wonderful women mentors in my life. And I would look, here's one thing Erin said that I just loved in her financial conversation, is she said, what are your values? That women put their money where their values are. And what I would do is that I looked for people, no matter what company I was, who had shared values. So like they shared family happiness as a value, or they shared integrity as a value, or they shared, you know, coaching as a value. You know, they wanted to be a good coach and stuff. And so I would find people who share your values. And you can't learn everything from one person, but I would take a person, whether it was a male or a female in the organization, and say, I want to know what they do. You know, they don't have turnover. They have people that want to go work for them. They hang on to their talent. Their talent's happy. They talk great about their boss. You know, that's the type of thing I'd want to get in with someone like that. You know, I'd also look out, I read a lot of books on leadership, you know, and whether it's, you know, Maya Angelou, or whether it's Oprah, or whether it's, you know, Mother Teresa, or whether there's a lot of women leaders that are out there, and that you guys follow on Instagram that are, you know, wonderful entrepreneurs and stuff. But find out what their values are. What do you put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah.
You know, do they care? Are their words and actions congruent to each other? You know, that means they're authentic. You know, if they're authentic and their words and actions are congruent, I would go after those people to be my mentors.
That's
you know,
awesome.
I've had great leaders and I've had bad leaders. I've learned as much from the bad leaders as I did the great leaders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what not to do and how I didn't want to lead because I knew how it made me feel. And then I had a great leader, Nancy Huber, who's one of my best friends, who just thought there wasn't anything I could do. And I'm looking at her like, are you looking at the same people? You know, are you looking at me? You know, but she believed in me so much that I had to believe in myself, you know? So I say surround yourself, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a coach, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a colleague, you know, surround yourself with people who lift you up and inspire you to do more than you think you're capable of doing.
That's awesome.
You know?
That's great. All right.
Hey, Lauris.
I know we're one after time, but if there's anybody who has a question, Tori, did you have a question?
I do have a question. Sometimes at work, I find myself feeling uncomfortable when I am asking people older than me to like work on projects with me or to support me. Is there any guidance that you have on the way you interact with people that are maybe 20 years older than you, but technically report to you, other than the golden rule, to make sure they feel like you're not being like a young, fresh 30-year-old?
You know, Tori, two things on that. I definitely have worked and coached a lot of people in their 30s, a lot younger than me. So, but I don't overthink it. So one thing I would say is that don't overthink it, because people who are more mature and have more experience understand the value that you bring too. Or if they don't, they respect the position that you're in. However, to ask questions like sometimes, in your experience, how have you done this? Or what have you seen that's worked? Or have you ever tried this? Or have you seen this done successfully? You know what I mean? I always tell people when they come into a new organization or a position like that, when you're working with people that have more experience than you is to be curious. Just think of curiosity. So how have you seen this done? I'd like to do this. Do you think I'm missing anything? You know, not on everything. Some things, it's like situational leadership. Some things you have to tell, some things you sell, some things you participate in, and some things you delegate to. And that's the art of knowing the readiness of the follower, okay? But if you think they've had a lot of experience in something you're doing, yeah, I've said, hey, in your experience, what do you think about this? I think we should try this. Or I'll say, what am I not thinking of here? Or could you add to this? You know, or how have you seen this done? I just say, Tori, be curious. You know, the 4 most powerful words you can do to validate somebody are, what do you think? You know, when you say, what do you think, you're showing I honor you and I respect you. You know, and that's showing respect to someone but then make sure you listen to what they say. Doesn't mean you have to do it. I've still done that where I've said, you know, you're going to have to humor me on that. I hear what you're saying, but I really want to try this, you know, but I will say, I hear you. Maybe next time, this time I'd like to try XYZ.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I'm sure that we have a lot of other questions and you know, additional things we want to cover. So the great news is Lauris has graciously offered to serve as kind of our coach in residence here at Wise Wellness Guild. We have in the member portal a link that you can sign up for, and it'll just send an email over to us. If you are interested in learning more about joining a coaching circle or being a part of one of our community groups with Lauris, so we can continue this dialogue on all things emotional intelligence and you know, learning more about on an individual basis what we can continue to do to grow. So thank you so much, Lauris, for joining today. I really appreciate it. You are just, like I said, my angel coach, and it's just really been, especially, you know, as I'm leaving corporate world and getting into building Wise, has just been an instrumental role model to me, and being able to look to for advice, guidance, and also just checking myself and my own emotions on this roller coaster that we call life and all things COVID. So thank you. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you get outside a little bit today and enjoy the sunshine. And I look forward to seeing you all next week with Kayla Hansman and with Melis from Roya, where we'll be talking about all things nutrition and fitness and how to integrate that in real ways into our lives. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.